Conway, Executive Director of New England Newspaper and Press Association. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're so thrilled to invite Peter Lamb back. Peter did a webinar for us last week on the best practices to succeed, especially in COVID times. So Peter is the president of Lamb Consulting. He's been in the sales and marketing industry for over 30 years, speaking regionally, nationally, internationally, well respected. And if you joined in last week's webinar, you know that he's a wealth of information. If you have any questions during the talk, just type them into the chat box and we'll address them. If they're an immediate concern, we'll address them. I'll interrupt Peter, and otherwise we'll address them at the end of everything. Peter, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Linda. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well up there in the Northeast. Happy Thursday morning from South Florida. Today's session is meant to be a little bit of a follow-up to last week, and I see we have some of the same people and a couple of newbies. And what I think I will do is do a quick review of last week. If you were on the session last week, I'd ask you to do some homework. Some of you sent some replies to Linda and Tara. So let me just tell you, under normal circumstances, when I do a rep session like that, and I ask them, what is your biggest aha moment? What was your biggest lesson learned? The questions and the answers are usually very similar. The first answer is always, no, Peter, I really enjoyed TLC. I really enjoyed your making me think about what thinking like the customer means, because in my organization, everything is focused so internally. So I've really reoriented my thinking, and everything I do is thinking about the customer. So again, I ask you today, if you're sitting in, you're probably not in the office, if you're at home in Zoom, imagine your customer sitting next to you, and as you listen to me speak, you're asking yourself, okay, did I do that? The second comment always after a rep session like last week is the whole conversation about ladder, okay? L looked them in the eye, A asked questions, do not interrupt, do not change the subject, empathize and respond. And if you're a manager on this session right now or a publisher, what normally happens is that 80% of the time the managers tell me, Peter, my biggest issue is D number 1 and D number 2. I have to learn how not to interrupt. I have to learn how not to change the subject, especially when I'm talking to a rep. And I'll talk a little bit about that today. The other one that really stands out in ladder is the whole conversation about asking questions. Was, as if you remember from last week, or you may have watched it on YouTube afterwards, I was very specific in the types of questions to ask. Your average rep asks average questions. Your great rep asks questions that challenges and provokes the customer, but doesn't tick them off. All right, let me say that slowly, because I'm talking fast again. Your great rep asks the customer questions that'll provoke him or her, challenge him or her, but not tick them off. Okay, that's a very fine line. You want to get into their head, and the same thing applies to the management side. So that's your quick review. Let's talk about today. I have a very ambitious agenda, and I'm going to try not to talk too fast, leave some time for questions. If for some reason we don't get there, shoot me email. You can go into the chat room. I'm happy to do that. I'm fortunate and blessed that I get to travel internationally, as Linda said, not recently because of COVID, and have quite a few clients in different parts of the world. You might not be surprised, or you may be surprised, that the types of questions that your typical sales manager asks me, whether it's in Singapore, the UK, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Hawaii, Vancouver, wherever I am, they're very, very similar. So I'm going to walk you through the most common questions I get asked in terms of providing advice. And if we get enough time, which I hope we do, I'm going to give you a profile of what the great sales managers around the world do. Just like we did last week, the great reps. Today we'll talk about great sales managers. Okay, the number one question I get anywhere in the world, Peter, how do I structure my Monday morning sales meeting? Now, it might have changed a little bit because of COVID, but if you are still working from home and you're a manager, you still should have it. Let me take my time on this, because this probably is the most important section of my presentation today. Question number one, I can't see you, so you're gonna have to think if you know the answer. Your typical sales manager in the world, there's one time of the week that they dislike or are afraid of the most. Think about what you think that might be. Some people say it's Friday afternoon because the reps are leaving. Some people say it's Monday morning because they have to put up with the reps again. Some people think it's the middle of the week because they got to give their butt. No, the answer is Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Why do most managers not like Sunday night at 8 o'clock? Because they know that is the time they have to prepare for the Monday morning meeting. Okay? They know that is their preparation time. 80% of sales managers around the world wing it. They do their Monday morning sales meeting and they just wing it. The great ones prepare. Let me tell you how you prepare. You always send an agenda out for Sunday night at 8 o'clock. In COVID times, you send out an email. These are the topics we're going to cover. Okay? If you're doing it right now, great. If you're not doing it, work on it. Again, let me go back to last week. Everything I'll be talking about today, I won't have time to ask you to grade yourself. Think about how you grade yourself and what I just said. Do you do anything on Sunday night? After your kids are asleep, maybe it's at 9, maybe it's at 9:30, maybe it's at 10. Do you send an agenda out? The grading scale is 0. I really need some help to get that done, Peter. 10, I'm awesome. I do it already. You figure out what that is. You can send me your grades. You can send them to Linda. You can send them to your publisher, something to work on. Okay. Your typical Monday morning meeting the best I've seen around the world, and this is a best practice, it's never more than an hour. And that is never. Well, Peter, you know what? My deadline's on Wednesday when I do my meeting on Thursday. No, your meeting's Monday morning. There's a reason it's Monday morning, because after a weekend, when your typical rep walks in Monday morning, is getting ready for a week of no, your publication stinks, I don't like you, I don't like your publisher, I don't like print, I don't like that, I don't like you. When they're getting ready for a week of that, your job on a Monday morning is to get them ready. It is the most important hour of the week. And that's why I'm taking a little bit more time to talk about that Monday meeting. Your typical Monday morning meeting that is great is in 15-minute increments. I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the 4 increments that you're going to do? Increment number 1, every rep gets to share a success story. That is every rep. If you've never done this before, and this is the first time you're going to do it, you're probably going to get a lot of personal successes. Do I really care? No, I don't. The whole idea is to get them to speak. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember the conversation last week, we talked a lot about customers want to vent because they're stuck in their business with no business. Your reps want to vent, right? So if they want to talk about a personal success, like they managed to make it through day 1 of the kids being schooled from home, and they managed to taking care of the dog and taking care of the cat, let them talk, okay? 15-minute success stories, everybody gets to play, okay? Number 2, the number 2 segment is the numbers. And this is however you go ahead and account for your numbers to your company. Revenue and number of accounts versus last year versus budget versus last month. Don't really care how you do it. You put the list up on the board and you walk through everybody's numbers, how they've done. Very important, okay? If you want to really make a big point and you want to make it best to worst, which most people do, great. If you want to do really cute, do it the reps that are doing the worst on top to the bottom and have a conversation about that, okay? The comments that come from you always to be what happened that was positive in the past week. Okay, so right now we're at 30 minutes. So we've done the first 15-minute success story, second 15 minutes, the numbers. Third 15 minutes is what I call the boring, I can't say a bad word because it's on webinar being recorded, the boring 15 minutes. We have new products coming out, we have deadlines coming out, the guy in finance is complaining about collections, blah, 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 blah. It's the stuff you have to cover, period, okay? Now you're at minutes 45. Last 15 minutes are just as important as the first 50 minutes. It's a training segment. And let me slow down. Who does the training? The answer is simple. Anybody but the manager. Anybody but the manager. Why? I apologize if you're a manager on the call. If you're going to take offense, I'm not meant to offend you. You are there every day of the week, coaching, coercing, bugging, begging them. The last thing they want to do is hear you in a Monday morning meeting as well. Let me tell you how you do this. There are a couple of great options who does that training. Option number 1. Bring in somebody from the outside. I have brought in a car dealer who's a client, talked about his or her business. I brought in a bartender. It's a 15-minute press. Hey, you know what? What are your favorite drinks to make? Remember, the goal of a Monday morning meeting is to make it fun, get them ready for the week, and make sure they learn 1 or 2 things to help them during a week. Very importantly, make it fun. Bring in somebody internally. Bring in your CFO. You really want to have some fun? Bring in the guy who manages your press. Bring in the press guy. Let him talk about what they do. Your reps will be fascinated when the press director, press manager talks about what they do. Now, if you want to get really smart, you look around your rep team, which you should be doing right now if you manage, and ask yourself, okay, who is the best in my group at opening sales conversation? That happens to be Jackie. Okay, Jackie, you're going to do the training next week. You're going to teach your peers how to do a kick butt opening sales conversation. And you as the manager are going to help her prepare the presentation. Let me tell you the psychology of that. When you as the manager talk, 50% of the time they tune you out, 50% of the time they listen. When one of their peers, another rep, is presenting, they always tune in. They are not going to tune their peers out. Best options are you find a way to take any of the options I've given you, but every Monday morning meeting training section, okay? Exception, I allow an extra 15 minutes only on one condition, if you're going to do a role play, okay? You have a new product coming out, you have an initiative coming out, you have a new program coming out, you have a new digital combination, you have a new package coming out. You know what? That's the time to role play. So then it's an hour and 15 minutes. Every other time, it's an hour and an hour only. Now, last piece of advice, okay? Make the meeting fun, meaning the following. Once we get back to some sense of normality, and even now, what you do, every 4 to 6 weeks, have the meeting somewhere else. Go to Dunkin' Donuts, go to Denny's, go to a park when it's nice. You're up in the Northeast, the weather's nice, have the meeting in the park. You can probably do it right now. Make it fun. They will remember when the meeting was fun and they will learn the most. Yeah? Again, let me wrap up this portion. Your role, if you're a manager or publisher on the call, is to get your team ready for the week they're going to get and get them ready for the objections and the no's and the insults and the hangups and all the stuff that entails being a rep. Your role is to shoot something in their veins and get them ready. That is the best option I've seen. Okay, Monday morning sales meeting, here we go. Number 2, Peter. How much time should I spend in the field? I'll cover this conversation later. But when I'm in the field with my rep, what should I do? What is my role? Tough one. This is the hardest thing I have to teach and coach with all my clients that I work with. Why? Most of the managers that are in our business today were great reps. And when they go on a call, their goal in life is to close business. Let's go back and think like the customer last week, TLC. When you're on a call with the rep, if you're the manager, and you close the business on behalf of the rep, tell me what the customer thinks. Customer has no respect for the rep. Rep has no credibility. And guess what? Customer will never deal with that rep. They'll always call you and you'll have a customer bugging you for the rest of your life. One thing to do when you're a manager on a call, absolutely say nothing. Take notes. If they drown, let them drown. If they say stupid things, let them say stupid things. If they get the rates wrong, let them skip the rate. Doesn't really matter. But here's what you do. Okay? You walk right back outside the customer's office. You coach the rep for 30 seconds about what they said and what they didn't say. You knock back on the customer's door, walk back in and say, you know, Linda, I apologize. Jackie is relatively new. Can we start all over again? Tell me what the customer's thinking when you do that. Wow, they have the guts to come back in. That's awesome. The respect level went right through the roof and you've taught the rep something. You will have that customer for life because what you did was memorable. You don't just walk away. Again, let me repeat, that's it's a fine line. Let them say what they need to say as the rep, walk outside, coach them right there and then, and get them back in there while it's fresh and let them start over. All the years that I've been doing that, maybe 5% of the customer said no, because the customer was a jerk. 95% of the people go, absolutely, come back in, start over. I understand somebody's brand new. Go ahead, let's start over. Okay? Scheduling. How do you schedule your time in the field? Well, there's a proper way and there's a devious way. One option for getting a schedule, you send and again, given we get back to normal time after COVID, and even with Zoom, you can send your schedule out for next week. Today's Thursday. This is the time I'm spending in the field on Zoom calls with your reps, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock on different days. The reps have the schedule, you're with them. Now, or you could be a little bit more devious. If you're not comfortable that your reps are doing what you'd like them to do, you walk in on a Tuesday morning and say, hey, Tara, I'm with you today at 10 o'clock. Joe, I'm with you at 11 o'clock. The first time you do that, you'll know that all the reps will learn they better have stuff lined up for you that involves making cold calls. Or you can be the most devious. Remember, kid from South Africa, lives in Miami, grew up in the hood. You walk in and you're about 11 o'clock, you call the rep and go, Jackie, I'm at the Starbucks in your territory. Why don't you meet me here right now and spend the next couple hours together? Either one of the above, right? What you really want to do is get your reps understanding you're not going to go there and be an elephant hunter for them. You're not going to close business for them. Your job is to teach them how to fish, coach them. You're going to coach, you're going to coach, you're going to coach. Those are the two most frequently asked questions I get anywhere in the world. And the one that managers struggle with the most is number 2, as you can probably tell. How do I sit there, Peter, and shut up? No, well, you just have to. Do something. Take notes. How do I get, Peter, how should the rep introduce me? When I go in sales calls, and I spend probably 50 days a year in the field with reps, I always say, independent consultant, here just to observe. Or if you want to be really, really funny, you can probably tell my sense of humor, I say, I'm the bodyguard. That sets the stage right away. And you can imagine certain parts of the country that I go and I work in, when you walk in and the rep says you're a bodyguard, and you happen to have a black bodyguard, it makes it really funny. But you know what happened? The customer remembers it and it's memorable and we get the business. Your job as the manager is to teach the rep how to be memorable. If you're saying you're the bodyguard makes it memorable, boom. You're saying that you're the big boss and the big shot doesn't make it memorable, puts pressure. Okay, let me move on because I will run out of time. Third most common question, and I'm gonna take a little bit of time with this one as well. Peter, contests, yes or no? And I always say, what do you mean yes or no? We're in a sales environment. The answer is always yes. Well, you know, Peter, you know, we tried this, blah, 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 blah. Wine. I always answer the, why don't you have some cheese with that wine? The answer to contests is yes. The challenge is that we have to understand who the responsibility is to do the contest. If you're a manager on this call, that is yours. If you're a manager on the call, the responsibility of designing the contest, implementing the contest, tracking the contest is yours. It's yours and your mindset. Now, excuse me. Most of the contests, most organization runs are revenue-based. They do okay for a certain period of time. Let me give you some other criteria. New accounts, total accounts for the week, penetration in a certain category. I can go on and on. Revenue per account. I can go on and on. Change the criteria, okay, as to what is actually involved. Usually when organizations want to get crazy with content, they call me and say, Peter, we need to change the contest. What do we do? Because the same reps always win in the contest. Well, you know what? If you made it, how many new accounts did you close next week? The same rep probably won't win it. And the newer rep that's making a ton of cold calls will do it. If you make a really, really cool contest, make a number of cold calls you make next week. Number of appointments you're going to make next week. The rep with the most appointments, get something, okay? Number 2 on contests. Challenge for you, and you can grade yourself 0 to 10 as I take a sip of coffee. How well do you know your reps? Do you know their vacation plans? Do you know where they like to, what they drink? Do you know the kids? Do you know what they do on the weekend? And why is that important? The days of having one contest that fits all are gone, ladies and gentlemen. We're in 2020. Setting, and this may be in stark contrast to what your organization believes, and I apologize in advance if you take offense to this if you're published on the call. The days of global contests are gone. The great contests, the ones that make the most impact, are one where you challenge people individually. For example, you know that one of your better reps has a couple of kids and they've never been to Disney World. Guess what? Let me give you a number to hit for the month of September. You hit that number, you get 3 airline tickets, you and your kids and your house, 4 airline tickets to Orlando, 4-day passes to Disney. There is probably a pretty good chance that the lady will hit it. Okay. Number 2, you have somebody who likes to golf. Set the target. 2 passes to Pebble Beach. Boom. Something that you know will motivate them to do above and beyond. That's the goal of a contest. Getting the rep to do above and beyond. There was a very famous quote from an Olympic coach many years ago, was the coach of Allyson Felix, who was the gold medal in the 200 meters. He says, my role as a coach is to push her to levels that even she believes she cannot get to. And I challenge you on this call, if you're a manager or publisher, that's your goal. Okay? Let me give you a couple of more examples. Some of the ones that I've done. When they launched the new VW convertible, in one of the cities that I worked in, we had struck a deal with a car dealer, got one on trade. Again, if your organization doesn't believe in trade, I apologize. Listen to the heart of the story. And we set a contest for automotive revenue. And the person that won the contest, number of new accounts and new revenue, they would actually get that car for a year. Volkswagen Bug convertible for an entire year. But what we did was we put that car in the lobby of the company. And the CEO and I would stand upstairs and watch every morning what happened. The top 3 reps in the company were the type A's, the piranhas, the barracudas, the rhinos. Here's what they would do. They would walk in the morning, they would take pictures, they would walk around the car, and they would visualize themselves in the car, okay? One of them did win. That was a big England in the city, go ahead and get a convertible, okay? I do, in the previous life, a lot of work in Saudi Arabia. If you've ever been to Saudi Arabia until recently, if you're a lady there, you could not drive. So if you were a lady sales rep, if you went on a call, you had a guy had to go with you, he had to drive you there, and you had to actually sit in the call with you, okay? That was the law. So what did we do? Very creative. Set a contest for the 3 female reps on the company, gave them a budget of 50% over for the next quarter. So if the budget was 100 grand, we made it 150 and said, if you hit that number, what do you get? You get a car and you get a driver. And the answer is yes, everyone hit the goal. because the prize was big enough and important enough and out there, and the rep and the manager and the publisher knew the rep well enough. They found exactly what would motivate them to do just a little bit more. Last one, just for fun. If you're a rep on the call and you're type A and your manager's really giving you a hard time, that's what we did in one market down here in this part of the world. We said to the manager, you know what? If we hit a number and hit the goal for the year, which is a very lofty goal, what we'd like to do, we'd like to shave your head. Manager, who was very proud of his hairstyle, I'm not gonna go any further than that, said, okay, I'm up for that. Did they hit the goal? Yes. Did they shave his head? Yes. Did they take pictures and put it on YouTube? Yes. Did he care? No. Why? The contest did the job. They hit the number. So if you're listening to my sentiments right here, your responsibility as the manager is to design the contest any way possible to make sure you motivate the reps to do above and beyond and to hit the goal. Now, let's make this a little more interesting because we have publishers on the call. If you're a publisher, an owner, or general manager, the contests do not stop at the rep level, okay? What most organizations forget to do is that they take their better reps and they make them managers, and all of a sudden the contests are gone. No, we set something in place for the managers as well. Like if we were together right now at the Hyatt in Boston as a group, I'd pick on two of you. I'd say, well, I'm looking at some names. There's Julie's here from the Caledonian Record and Christine's here from the Current. Let's just say you were managers. I would say, why don't you just challenge each other for the next month? The person who hits their budget by the bigger amount of money, the loser has to cook dinner for the winner. The loser has to come out in the middle of the snowstorm and wash their cars, whatever the above is, doesn't matter. If you have multiple managers in your company, let them challenge each other because it's for the right reason, and you will be shocked at the results. Look at my notes. Another really fun one. In certain cultures, this might not work. It worked really well in the UK. My client there had 150 reps inside reps. And they had a little thing called a bubble where you had an office with windows with office in the middle with glass all around it. And the guy who was the CEO had started as a part-time rep on the phone 10 years earlier. So we had a rep versus manager contest for 2 hours. 2 hours every day. Who could make the most amount of calls? Who could get the most amount of appointments set up? 4 reps versus 4 managers, and you could trade back and forth. Any other reps jump in, other managers jump in. If you're sitting on this call and you're competitive like I am, you know how much fun that was. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, every time the reps kicked the butts of the managers. It was a beautiful sight to behold. My challenge to you is, what could you do in your organization, number one, to make it fun and to hit the number, especially where we are right now, especially in the middle of COVID, especially in the middle of all the craziness, people working from home. Now is the time for you to take your creative juices and make it even better. Other great things that have worked with contests, spin and win, where you spin the win, you get time off, okay? If we were together, I would say to you, let me give you a test. All the call centers I work in, telemarketing reps, insights, whatever you want to call them, what are the 3 prizes that motivate a call center rep the most? And it's not money, okay? The 3 areas that motivate them the most is, number 1 is always time off. Example, Mr. Rep, you hit your goal by Thursday, 5 o'clock, don't come to work on Friday. When you're an inside sales rep, that's a beautiful thing. Number 2 is always food, because a lot of call centers don't allow you to bring food in. Guess what? You hit your goal by a certain amount of time, we'll bring food to the lunchroom, we all have lunch, okay? Number 3 is recognition. Time off and food are the biggest motivators for rep inside. So my challenge to you on this is, think about your team. What would motivate them to go ahead and do more? Last one on contests. Think about your CEO or your owner. Think about the rep that you think's on the fast track. Set the goal for them and say, you know what? You do this, you hit that, I'll get you lunch with Jack. I'll get you lunch with the owner. I'll get you lunch with the CEO, whatever that takes. For certain reps, that is much more important than anything else, having lunch or dinner with the owner or the CEO, okay? So I've taken a little bit more time in contests than I normally would, but understanding, okay? In different cultures in the world, contests are different, but you as the manager, your responsibility to think of what is creative to make it better, okay? Let's keep going. Other questions? Big question I get, and I'm not gonna take too long to answer that, I'm gonna just rush through it. Peter, how do I build my team? Okay, where do I find people? In a lot of the clients that I've worked with for quite a while, the person that does the last interview with the rep or the manager to be hired is me. So they go through the interview process, and then I get to be the last person that interviews him to say, yeah, and it fits the culture. And I have a rule. there are three categories of reps that we look at that we hire almost immediately. Category number one is an athlete, either somebody who played competitive high school, college, or pro. Number two category is always somebody who is in the military. Reason: when you're an athlete professionally or in college, or like if you were a wrestler, like a lot of good wrestlers and clients around the world, or you're in the military, you understand the meaning of the word discipline. If I said to you, you've got to make 60 calls a day to make $75,000 in a year, I have no problem that you're going to do it. Okay? I cannot teach discipline. I've done this for quite a few years, as Linda mentioned. I am not that good. I can teach discipline. I can teach selling skills. I can teach how to overcome objections, but I cannot teach discipline. If you already walk into this company with discipline, you have 80% of the battle won. Third category is always teachers. Why? Teachers have the best communication skill to make the least amount of money. Think about companies you've worked before. Chances are every one of the companies you've worked before, if you've been around a while, you can think of one or two people that fit that mold. They were an athlete, they were in the military, or they were a teacher. They have done well, okay? Every time we've hired a teacher that said, I want to, and they have great communication skills. They can communicate to third and fourth and fifth graders. Guess what? They can communicate to clients, okay? Great communication skill. I'm a big believer in interns. You guys live up in the Northeast. You have tons of colleges around. Find an intern. There are tons of them available right now. What normally happens with an intern is when they come to work for the summer, for 3 months or 6 months, they'll come back to you afterwards. But the intern doesn't focus on one area. The intern does everything. They spend some time in sales, they spend some time in editorial, they spend some time in the field, they spend some time doing everything they learn in the business. Okay? It's our job. Number 4 on my list, retail. 3 of the clients I work with, their VPs came from the retail side of the business. Why do they work in the retail store? And the thing with retail is your money is controlled by people walking in, how much the advertising works. When they realize they can make cold calls and drive the income, they love it. Okay? Lots of very, especially where we are right now, where there are a lot of retail stores that are closing and there are lots of people out there looking, we have to find them. I don't think there are any journalists on the call, so nobody will get mad at me for saying this. It's not the easiest thing in the world finding reps. It's a lot easier finding journalists. So what I always tell my clients, go ahead and hire 3 or 4 young journalists. And after a certain period of time, you'll probably find that one of them is very ambitious and dangle the carrot and move them over to sales. Why would that work? Because the skill that you have as a journalist, the best skill is being a great questioner. You ask great questions. What's the best skill for rep? Great questions. So when you walk in from the journalist side of the business to the dark side to our side, and you already have questioning skills down pat, you're halfway there. Think again about your career. There are tons of people on the editorial side of the business that would do great in sales because they know how to ask questions. Big difference is the following. The end result for a journalist is a story. The end result for the questioning skill for a rep is money. But the process is exactly the same, ladies and gentlemen. You're still asking questions. Last one. This is my favorite. I used this in a call yesterday in Toronto, and the guys thought I was speaking Chinese. Referral program. Who better to know exactly what it entails being a rep in your company than another rep? Now, don't be your typical, let me say this carefully, Linda will get mad at me. Don't be your typical North American sales organization and offer a referral of $250. That does nothing. Make it $2,500 if you're a publisher on the call. Okay, think about it. $2,500 if you can refer somebody that would. Day 1, we pay you $1,250. When they make it to day 91, we give you another $1,250. Why is that important? Number 1, if you have an open territory, it costs you a lot more than that. Number 2, if you go through a recruiter, it costs you a lot more than that. Number 3, you have a pretty happy employee when they referred somebody else to work with you and they already walk into a ready-made social network. Referral bonuses work well if monitored correctly. What most companies do, they make it too little. Make it a lot. Make it so that people's eyes pop and they go, you're going to pay me how much? I have a client in the Midwest. The number for them is $4,000. You know what? They have no problem getting reps. They have 600 reps altogether. They have no problem getting referrals. Again, my challenge to you is, what are you doing about that? My challenge to you on you grading yourself on my segment on building the team, ask yourself, how well am I doing in looking for people? Number 1, the last point on this, which is totally off subject. Let me just check the time here. Certain one of my clients, we go in and we pay the senior management team, if you're senior manager in the call, how many people do you have in the pipeline? Do you have a bench? If you're a manager, you always want to have a bench of reps waiting to go. Just like you have a pipeline for customers, you want to have a pipeline for reps. Last point. The best companies in the world that talk about building their team, they have a rigid, slow down, formal, structured onboarding process. It's usually 3 to 6 months long. And I'll tell you the highlight. The highlight there is that when the brand new, let me backtrack, you would be shocked, maybe you wouldn't, how many times a new rep walks in for day one and there's nobody to meet them. It's happened to me in the 2019, 4 different customers. Their rep walked in, there was nobody to meet them there. When I interview reps now about that have been around, tell me what happened your first day, 50% of them say there was nobody there to meet them. I hope that's not your company, okay? Day one, they walk in, you've identified somebody called a buddy mentor for them for the next 6 months. Somebody that you already have in the company that's either in the creative side of the business or somebody that's in the sales side of the business. That'll be their mentor and their buddy for the next 6 months. Yes, they'll still have a manager, but it's somebody that's probably relatively close to their age that they can go to for any kinds of stuff that they need clarification on, okay? That's building your team. Other question I get a lot, which is a little bit harder now given COVID, is Peter, tell me what the model sales weeks look like. No, I'm not gonna go through that. I didn't have time to walk you through. You know about the Monday morning sales meeting, you know about time in the field. The second most important event of the week is the one-on-one meeting you have with your rep. Yes, it's every week. Some of you are probably gonna go, I hate that guy Lamb. Yes, it's every week. Yes, it's 15 to 20 minutes. Every week, a one-on-one meeting, with your reps, individually. The first week they go ahead, you set the agenda and you talk about what you want to talk about. The second week they do, and then you alternate. You set the agenda, next week you tell them, whatever you want to talk about, I'm here. They decide what it is, okay? That is very, very important. Again, this is the time to vent. Even if you're on Zoom, having a one-on-one meeting, you let them talk about what they want to talk about is not all bad. You're developing the relationship. The one-on-one, and this is, again, if you make the assumption that the average manager should have 6 to 9 reps, that's not that big a deal, that every week you need to go ahead, and again, let me say it again, every week, a one-on-one meeting. Okay, let's move along. 2 of my pet peeves. It's the next 2 things I'll cover. My pet peeves are my frustration in working with sales managers around the world that I wish they would get better at, and I could find a way to coerce them to work on that skill. Skill number 1 is listening. Just like I said to you earlier on ladder, 80% of the managers I work with tell me that their biggest issue is do not interrupt, do not change the subject. They have to get better at that. I did the webinar yesterday, 20 managers on the call, 18. Peter, that's my area I've got to focus on. Okay? So let me just give you a couple of, I'm going to just get very basic, a couple of listening skills rules. Okay? If you're writing this down, if not, I can always send it to you. I always listen for a family or a sports reference. Why is that important? I have a list in front of me. It's important that when you're dealing with a customer with a rep and they're talking about the family, it means they're talking about something that's emotional. When they're talking about sports, it's something they're passionate about. And your responsibility then is to always go ahead and have a follow-up question. Very important. You're always listening. And your job is to teach your reps on a sales call, always listen for that sports, that family reference, because that allows you the ability to have a follow-up question and ask some more. Number 13 and 14 on my list, the list I'm looking for you is really, really fun, because every manager goes, that's me. I frequently jump to conclusions. Yep. And again, if you're on this call, grade yourself. No, I don't, Peter. I wait. Number 14 I have is I try to solve the problem too quickly. Most managers fail that one miserably. Never let the rep finish the conversation. They try and solve the problem right away. Okay. Number 17, learning curve here for you if you're a manager on the call, even for a rep. I remind myself that every conversation is an opportunity to learn something. If you internalize that, great. Teach your reps that, even better. And that could be a conversation they're watching on television. They can be a conversation they're having with a customer, even with the kids. I remind myself, every conversation is an opportunity to learn. And the last one, which is something that you as a manager on this call should have developed by now and need to go ahead and teach your reps, is that you pay very special attention to the customer's nonverbal communication. The great reps I work with, they know that, and the great managers teach that. That's why they spend some time on the call in the field. Excuse me, when the customer's looking at their watch constantly, usually means they're in a hurry. The average rep keeps on talking. When the manager's there, he says to the rep, you know what, it's probably time for us to go. Okay? Very important. That's listening skills. Now, my biggest pet peeve, what do I struggle with the most? what frustrates me the most with managers, senior executives, CEOs, publishers in my business around the world. Presentation skills. Again, you'd be shocked how many people wing it. Going to a big presentation, they wing it. It's my biggest pet peeve. Did you know that every professional athlete, I think you guys are naughty, the Patriots started practice this week. I saw some stuff with Cam Newton. Did you know that what Bill Belichick does, he puts them through so many drills that when they get to the actual day, it's rote, like it's normal. That's what athletes do. My responsibility to senior executive CEO, you need to go ahead and practice every presentation before you get there, okay? Number one lesson. Number two lesson, record yourself. We have iPhones right now. Record yourself, record your entire presentation. If you've never done that, you'll probably be shocked. You'll go, that was me? Whoa, I better start that one over and do it again, okay? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you are a manager on this call, your job is to lead your troops into battle, okay? We are in a battle on multiple fronts. Your job is to lead them into battle. They follow your lead into battle. And your job is to go ahead and get everything ready for your presentation, to go ahead and get ready, okay? So let me give you, again, if we were together, I would send you these articles to talk about, but I've got two people that I always quote. One happens to be Tony Robbins. And let me tell you what Tony Robbins says about presentations. He says, go deep quickly. Okay. Boom. Go for the shock factor. You know, that's not all bad. Shock them right away. Shock them right away. A lot of people say, well, tell a joke first. Yeah, you know what? Telling a joke always helps. But if you're doing a presentation to multiple people or customers or a board presentation, the shock factor always helps. Go ahead right away, shock right away, and end strong. Beginning and ending are always the most important. Never ask if there are any questions, because the answer is always going to be no. The questions always pick on somebody specifically, get them to talk about a specific topic before their questions. The other one is that you are not the PowerPoint presentation. You probably notice it's a little bit different than most. I have no PowerPoint, because I could probably send you some visuals. That the visuals are very important. And the other very important point that both Tony Robbins and three other very great speakers talk about is go unplugged. Go from your heart. Okay. A lot of people use PowerPoint presentation as a crutch, and they read and they read and they read. If you were sitting, if I was watching you now, you'd be laughing. Yep. I've been in presentations like that where you go to the end. If they give you the handout, the role of a great presentation is you let them sit on the edge of their seat asking for more. Go deep quickly, visuals in between, get to the very end, and end strong. Again, last quote I'll make you. You are not your slides. Okay? The slides are not the presentation. The slides are not the end result. If you remember the conversation we had last week with the reps, I said the most important reason customers should use you is because you're the ones going to take care of them. Presentation skills. Again, don't have enough time to go into more detail. If we had some time, I'd give you a topic if we were together in Boston. Maybe we'll do that the next time we have a conference and give you a topic and do a presentation, right? That's the whole idea. But I challenge you again, as you're thinking about your Monday morning presentation, what are you thinking about it? Are you going to practice it? Are you going to role play on your dog or your cat or your wife or your kids? The key is to get ready. Don't just walk in, wing it, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen, your reps, if you're a manager, are depending on you. Okay, my last topic of the day. What do great managers look like? Okay, and let me tell you again, if you were with me last week, the way I do this is I take a look at some of the good ones. I work with the guy in the UK, look at the skill set, look at how they rearrange their life, their day, what they do with the reps, and say, this is the profile of a great man. And as I run them down, you ask yourself, is that me? Okay, is that what I do? Number one, obviously, number one, you should know what that is. They have great communication skills, right? Number one. Let me just go back a second. Quick cup of coffee and retrace. Number one. Every 2 years, there's a little company called Google. They get the sales reps to evaluate their manager. Okay, I want you to think about that. They get the sales reps to evaluate the manager. And at the end of the survey, Google goes ahead and prepares a report and says, the managers in Google that do the best, this is what they do. So I'm going to give you the top 2. And this has been the result the last 10 times they've done it. The greatest or the best managers in Google, number one, are great coaches. Very simple. Best managers in Google are great coaches. Think about where you live, Bill Belichick. I can go on and on different sports. If you were doing this as a group, I'd say think of coaches you admire. Number 2, Great managers at Google do not micromanage. They empower the team. Let them fall on their face. Let them draw on, like I said earlier on. Number 3, because it's very tough. I wasn't going to say, but it's topical given where we are. They express interest and concern for the team members' success and well-being. And I'll finish that sentence, especially during these trying COVID times, right? That is the 3 top criteria that Google says their managers are the best at doing. Okay? That's Google. Let me give you mine. Number 1, they listen and communicate very well. Number 2, set goals for the reps, monitor them, and beat them. Now, what a lot of managers do, they set the goals, but we all know what the golden rule of success of management and leadership is. Right? Inspect what you expect. Your reps know that you're going to ask them to do a bunch of stuff, but you're going to get busy, blah, 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 and you're not going to have time. You inspect what you expect, and if you measure it, it'll move. Those are 2 golden rules. I was going to end with that, but I'll say it right now, of management. Number 3, great rep. Always hits their target. That's self-explanatory. Number 4, builds great teams and makes it a fun environment. Again, think of where you've worked before. Think about the fun environment you probably had and what the team was, and ask yourself, if I'm the manager, am I doing that same thing right now? Okay? Now it gets interesting. Great managers win every contest. I talked about that last week. We can figure that one out. The next 2 are probably the most important ones to me personally. Number 1 is asking for help. Great managers realize they never arrive. They realize asking for help is a position of strength, not a position of weakness. And they're always looking for ways to get better. If you're on the webinar today, congratulations, you want to get better. If you're busy listening to podcasts, congratulations. The rule of thumb, and I'm trying, this is not meant to be mean. Remember, this is the big boy, big girl club part. It is very hard to educate others when you're not educated. Your responsibility as a manager, if you want to grow to leadership, educate yourself as much as possible. Is there a podcast? Do you read Harvard Business Review? Do you read the business section? What are you doing right now? Did you read How to Win Friends and Influence People? What are you doing right now to get better? Last one. They never forget their time as a rep and all the dumb things they did. I want you to laugh about that if you're listening to me. Great reps, great managers, never forget their time as the rep. 2 things. My time as a rep, I could not stand long meetings. So I could not concentrate after an hour. So none of the meetings I have is more than an hour. Okay? Your responsibility after this webinar is asking yourself, when you were a rep, what did you like? What did you not like? And are you really implementing the things that you really believe are important? Number 2, when you talk about your time as a rep, and this is my last point before I give you a challenge, please make sure you don't talk about how great you were. Okay? The reps know you were good. The reps know you broke the single day record of $45,000, blah, 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 blah. When you talk about your time as a rep, talk about the dumb stuff you did. Talk about the stupid mistakes you made in front of the customer. Talk about the fact you actually called the customer the wrong name. Talk about the fact that you showed up on the wrong date, that you ran them, whatever. Because when you do that to reps, especially newer reps, you give them hope that even though you did those dumb things 10, 15, 18 years ago, you still became a manager, right? Very important. When you talk about yourself, talk about the things you did that were just, stupid's a bad word, silly mistakes, but you overcame them and what you did. Last point, my challenge for the day to you. Little story. Some of you may have read it before. Guy walks into a restaurant on a Friday afternoon at noon. No, this is not an Australian or an Irish joke. Actually, it's a story. I hope there's nobody Australian or Irish on the call. Looks around for a place to sit and it's busy. This is pre-COVID times, and ends up taking a seat at the bar. He's a little bit anal, like I am about time. He's looking at his watch, and about 12 minutes, waiter comes up to him and says, "I apologize, sir, we're very busy. What would you like to get?" "I would like a chicken Caesar salad with my dressing on the side and a Diet Coke." And the waiter says, "I apologize, sir. We do not carry Coke products. Can I get you anything else?" Yes, "Oh, it's okay. Get me water." Okay, so he's watching. He sees the waiter scurrying around. It's busy. The restaurant's full. 12, 13, 14 minutes later, the waiter shows back up, chicken Caesar salad, dressing on the side. And would you believe it? There's a Diet Coke. The question is, what happened? How did the Diet Coke end up there? And if you said, he ran across the street to get it, wrong answer. Okay? What he did was he went to his manager and said, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Manager, you're sitting in your office there. I've got a customer, remember, think like the customer, that wants a Diet Coke. Can you help me?" And the manager got up from the office, went across the street, went to Star Market, bought a Diet Coke. Now, my challenge to you is when you are the manager and your rep comes to you, what would you do? Are you going to be the manager who goes, oh, well, give him water or let them eat cake, as Maria Antoinette said? Or you give me the manager that gets up, goes across the street, and thinks like the customer and takes care of it? Very important. Last homework. Again, send it to Linda, send it to her. What is your biggest lesson today? What is your biggest aha moment? And what is the 1 or 2 things that you know that you need to do tomorrow, Friday, to be a better leader, be a better manager? Okay. I appreciate your time. I'm just on time for any questions. Linda, you there?
I am. I'm here. I actually don't have, nobody's given me any questions. If anybody wants to send any in, this was great. I mean, the whole thing about the culture being so important, that's one of the things that I've learned too, just hiring people at NENPA, and even before I was the executive director, hiring people with the previous executive director. If culture is so important, and it's just, we've had the most success hiring people that are on your list, people who are athletes, people in the military, people, you know, because they are teachable. If you don't have the skills, that's okay. The skills can be taught, but it's the attitude and and the drive that you really can't teach.
You know, and then most people think our business is complicated. It really isn't. That teaching how to sell advertising really is not that complicated. You think about it, you know, and they try and overblow. No, it's a lot. This is not that hard. It's all the other stuff that comes with it. That's the hard part. What do we joke? Sure. This would be a great business. There were no people involved. I'll be quiet now.
That's true. And I liked your challenge at the end. I like this story with the Coke, because that's what we try to instill at NENPA. You know, always say yes. The answer is always going to be yes, and we'll figure out how to do it. But the answer is always yes. We'll figure out how to do it. You don't just tell people no when they need something. So
That's okay.
This was terrific.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much, Peter. This was
very
fantastic.
welcome, Linda. You're welcome.
And
any questions, you know, you can always forward to them afterwards later. It's not a problem.
Yeah, just send anything along to me or to Peter, and I'll get in touch with Peter, and we'll be sending out a copy of the recording to everybody. And we'll talk to everybody soon. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.